Hello everyone and welcome to Alternative Interactions. I'm Gary. Please like, share and subscribe. It helps my channel immensely and I really do appreciate all the shares that I get throughout all the platforms. I really do appreciate it, so thank you very, very much. Today we're going to look at electric vehicles. Now there's a lot of conjecture certainly regarding electric vehicles and their use. But I want to have a look at the electric vehicles of the past because I don't think we're any more advanced. In fact, I would say we're less advanced than what we were back a good while ago. And so I'd just like to show you this in a fairly quickish video and demonstration. I've got a few slides to show you, and hopefully that'll get your mind thinking about what's really going on with electric vehicles, because it's not what you think, I believe anyway. So here we go. So here we have a very early electric vehicle. Now if you do some Google searching, it actually states that the first electric car as we kind of know it today was in 1830, but we also have the same internet saying that it wasn't until 1880 or 1860 when these things first came around. So the internet is really contradicting itself. Now I can certainly go back to 1830 and see that there are or were electric vehicles in 1830. So you know, we're almost, not quite, but almost 200 years from the inception of. Now this one I think is even older than 1830, because the 1830 one actually looks very much like a car or a carriage, as this is more of an electric bicycle, a trike. But you can see very clearly that they have an electric motor. I mean, they would have sat this way, so I think it would have gone we're looking from the back of the vehicle, so they would have sat on the seat facing forwards potentially, and we have some controls here for them to use, but we can see a bank of batteries, an electric motor and a drive system, and the all-important brake, twin brakes in fact. But this was spoke technology. Now I think this predates the 1830 date and vehicles that I have seen, and it could predate it by a good 5, 10, 15, 20 years, who knows. One thing we do know is that in the past we have had vehicles far more advanced even than we have today, flying vehicles or ships. So really this is just a reinvention of an old invention of a reinvention of. But it's very interesting. So I've included this slide because we can clearly see this is an electric car of 1887. The battery would be here behind this gentleman, and this is what we would see as, or understand as, an early vehicle. But what's very interesting, and I would suggest you guys, if you fancy it, looking this up, is Big Red. And this contraption was fully mechanical and was used to pull carriages. There's even photographs of it having a boxing match with a man, and it seems to be one of the first out in public robots that resembles a human. That's 1893. So you're telling me that from 1893 to now, we've only got what they show us on television robot-wise? I'm not sure about that. But the vehicle is what I'm more interested in, and we can see we have lights, which would have not been particularly bright, but we have lights, a battery in the back, and this is more of the carriage type thing that we would associate with an early vehicle, but it's 1887. So you've got to think 1830s was the first vehicles of this type being done. So, you know, we're talking 50 years later. Here we have a few adverts for the more modern vehicles. So this is early 1900s, late 1800s at the latest. But we can see we're getting more of the shape of the motor car now. It's beginning to take that classic look that we currently have today. And this is one of the earlier ones, as you can see. The batteries in here. Drive chain from the battery going down in. And if you look at the internet, Studebaker they're all saying 1902 on the internet, but I think this is far earlier than 1902. And here we still have electric vehicles, but we now have them enclosed and looking more like a modern vehicle. This is certainly, you know, the 1920s period. Interesting. I think this predates the 1920s just slightly, but it's still around that period. And here we have more of the old carriage type system. So you can see how it's developed from a tricycle to a more coach-like system to then the modern shape of the car. Now this is 1917, and we can see these are mostly lorries. I know for a fact that New York was very, very advanced in this. So New York had a huge electrical grid system set up for the use of electric cars and vehicles and huge charging plants. But here we have lorries being charged up, ready to go out for the day. But as it says quite clearly, how did we lose this technology, then reinvent it 100 years later? It doesn't make a lot of sense, that. And here we have another charging station. Various different cars or types. So this is a smaller vehicle, this is a slightly bigger one. You can see there's more room in the back of this one. But it's a mixture of all the different styles and types. And the charging systems here. Now, very interestingly, charging system wise, years ago when I lived elsewhere, my neighbour had one of the original battery chargers, and this was run on mercury, and he actually ran it. He plugged it in before he moved and showed me it in his garage. It should have really been in a museum. It was such an heirloom. I mean, it weighed a ton, and the only reason why he showed me this was because he wanted me to help him move it for his move, to get it in the back of his van, which I did a few days later. But this was basically a round glass container with mercury inside, and what happened was, when the mercury has electric current go through, it span and created an off charge, and you actually had a plasma lighting plasma inside shooting up and going through into the cabling. It was quite a fascinating thing to see. I never took a photograph of it, but it was quite a thing, and it was a good size. I mean, it was probably 3 foot tall by 2 foot by 2 foot at least. And weighed a ton, because obviously the mercury, and it had a lot of mercury in it. Very interesting. Here's another charging system, but the battery would be here. Now I've also seen what they did in later times in New York is they had charging stations, and what you would do is you would drive your car into the charging station. They would open this back end up, get it on a hoist, lift this battery out, put it down, place a new battery that was fully charged straight into the back of your car, close the lid down, and within 10 or 15 minutes you were off again and driving, and the battery you left behind was then charged up, ready for the next customer or in a bank of charging. And so it wasn't like today where each car has its own set of batteries. It was a universal battery that went into all the cars, and they were charged in the charging station, and all you did was pay a small amount of money for the charged battery and the swap over of it. Strange how they can't do that these days, isn't it? But I actually saw that in an old film, and obviously I can't put a film on here, or haven't worked out how to. So, but yeah, this sort of thing was about them. So they really did have this organised. Now this is something I want to take your attention to. Is we're now looking at more of a car type shaped vehicle. But look at that, the 1,000-mile endurance run. These cars, these electric cars, would run at 600 miles on one charge, and you could even get more out of it, but it would then affect the battery's life. And so people in New York and around the States would have been using, in the big cities, using electric vehicles, and they would have done 600 miles worth of distance in these vehicles before that battery swap over was done that I spoke about, that took 15 minutes, and they would then go into and do another 600 miles. We can't get anywhere close to that today. So this is the new Edison storage battery. So they're experimenting with batteries, and they're getting 1,000-mile distance out of a vehicle of this type in the 1920s, if not earlier. So in 1909, the BlackRock runabout did 1,244 miles on one charge. And like I said, from the research I've done, these vehicles could do 600 miles no problem whatsoever, and you would swap the battery out from the back, put a new battery in, and you then get another 600 miles. And these batteries lasted and lasted and lasted. If you took the battery to 1,244 miles in 1909, this is, what you would find is that it would actually kill the battery, and the battery would not take the charge anymore. So I've seen documentation regarding the 600 mile, and I've seen them say craning them out. Now here we have a Tesla, a 2019 version that states that it can do 408 miles on one charge. Well, actually, you may be able to get that out of a Tesla in a hot country, but in the United Kingdom, where we get snow, ice and cold weather and frosts, these things do around 250 miles and need a charge. So in 110 years, we've gone from this, an easy 600 miles, but a 1,244 mile distance on one charge, to a maximum of 408 and more like 250 miles. Now, are you really seriously telling me that technology has not advanced or has de-evolved since the early 1900s? New York had charging stations everywhere. It was set up as an electric city. And again, when we talk about the Tartarian stuff, those charging ports initially would have been free via the wireless electricity around. So in the late 1800s, I mean certainly in 1830, a lot of the major cities would have still had their Tartarian grid system, free wireless electricity going on. And so it wouldn't have cost you anything to charge your electric vehicle. You would have had unlimited mileage almost, in real terms, around a city, day in, day out, week in, week out, and you could have charged your vehicle for free from the etheric energy. And I have done videos on this. Did one, I think, Thursday or Friday last week, about the stolen technology, or the fact that energy was also beneficial to us. But this is what they've done to us. This is advancement. Now, I know this is a later date with the petrol engine, but again, car parking and car storage was a very different thing as it was now. And you could drive your car into this and park it. Look, there's two different ones there. It would cost you 35 cents or 40 cents to park it. You park your car, drive it in, and it goes up and like a big circle almost, and you would be out, and it would go around at the top and come back down again. And so you could give them the ticket, they would know which car was yours, and it would come down. Thank you very much. How advanced are we now to this? Parking solutions. I mean, this is the same kind of system. You can see this on here, and there it's against the wall for space wise, so you drive the car in and it's against the wall. This one's freestanding, same system. That's why the streets weren't overcrowded with parked cars, because you could park your car here for however long. Now this is something that I know it's not electric. I will briefly go on it while we're actually looking at cars which were of a combustion engine type. I want to talk about Prohibition in the United States. And the reason for Prohibition, you know I like my tangents, and this is the tangent. So we had, or the Americans had, Prohibition in the United States. And you'll be told all these stories about it was for the liquor companies and everything else, but it wasn't. Prohibition was started and funded and controlled by Standard Oil, who was Mr. Rockefeller. Because Mr. Rockefeller wanted to expand the use of petroleum in vehicles. And the only reason that Prohibition happened was that at the time Ford Motor Company and all the other companies built engines that ran on ethanol. And people had stills and would brew their own alcohol, moonshine in fact, and the moonshine would be used to power the vehicles and drive the vehicles for free. So apart from some grain and the still outlay, or potato, or corn, you could, once you had your moonshine still, you could create your moonshine or ethanol, and that is what you would have put in the tank of your car, and your car would have run in it. And so Mr. Rockefeller and the Standard Oil Company got the law changed because they obviously had the connections, and that's why you had Prohibition with alcohol. And over those years of the police enforcing what was a private company's requirement so they could make more money, not only did around 10,000 people at least die of alcohol poisoning because they poisoned the alcohol, what you got at the end of it was that Ford and all the big companies only produced petrol combustion engines from that point onwards. And that allowed Rockefeller and the Standard Oil companies and all the other derivatives that they have now of that to charge people for travelling. So when we start looking at this story, we can see that the electric vehicles were very, very cheap to run, if not free almost, par the purchase. They had at least a 600-mile range, and many of them would do 1,000 or 1,200 if really pushed. We then go on to the manufacturing of vehicles with a combustion engine which was ran on ethanol, which again was free. And this then hooks people into the use of vehicles and not horses anymore and carts. And then we have the twist of the dumb elites, the D-elites, coming in and ensuring that the rules are changed, the laws changed, and then all of a sudden after this period, people have to pay for their transport costs in petroleum. Real good, isn't it, eh? What a con. Our transportation should be free, just like everything else, and it's not. So we're going to go to the 1920s here and the electric scooters. And again, just like the cars, everybody was using, or there was a lot of people using electric scooters in this period. These are either police or the posties. I think they're the posties, sorry, yeah, post office. And the posties would be going around delivering parcels and packages, letters on these electric scooters. Today in the UK, if you drive an electric scooter that's your own, the police will stop you on the road or the pavement and on the public highway. The police will stop you and take it off you. But you can go to a station, and there are several of these type things, where you can rent a scooter via an app on your phone, and you can drive exactly the same kind of scooter around the city because you've paid for it via an app. Really interesting, isn't it, hey? Really interesting. But as we can see, it would have been a thing in the day for people to go out through the major parks on these scooters. The electric motor would have been housed here. This is the battery. And off we go. Again, the electric battery. The electric motor running it. And I would imagine they also had these that would run on at the time ethanol as well, so you could have poured a little cup of ethanol in and it would have been a little motor that would have run. But these particular ones are all electric. Now, I think this is the last slide. We know this is called a Segway. Developed in the late 20th century. But this is a bronze brooch, late 5th to early 4th century BC. So 400 years before, 500 years before the alleged birth of Christ and the religion of Christianity. And what do we have here? We have something that looks like a Segway. It certainly has two wheels. And they're certainly standing on something. Interesting, isn't it? Like I say, how advanced are we really? And this is another one that I put in, which is very, very interesting. Now, during the Tartarian stuff, I have shown you many, many pictures of domes of buildings and how they were used to create free energy. Well, these two balls here go into this box, which creates free energy from the ether. And Nikola Tesla developed this system and put this system on an electric vehicle. And this electric vehicle was run and driven for an entire week without charging or needing any kind of form of maintenance. And it would have gone on forever and ever and ever. Perpetual motion via these two, creating free energy. Two balls. I should imagine there's mercury inside, spinning, creating an electrical force which causes a toroidal field of current, which is then picked up here and goes through into the electric motor. And at the end of the week, I think it's either a week or a month they ran it for. They certainly ran it for a long period of time. And at the end of the time, and I believe it was the Ford Motor Company, they said no thank you. Because they couldn't make money out of it. So back in the 1800s, early 1900s, they had free electricity that could be connected to an electric vehicle and run for zero cost for thousands of miles. What a con we now have to pay, and how little mileage we can get out of a modern electric vehicle. Right. Hello everybody. I hope you found that interesting. We can clearly see throughout history the controllers or the Zionist hand on many, many things that have been used to control us and to take away our money, to create the debt slavery in which we now currently are living in, but about to move out from. I am certain of that. So I hope that gave you food for thought about electric vehicles, how long they've been going, how unadvanced we currently are. I mean, I'm pretty sure from looking it up that perpetual motion, as in an electric motor running, creating using dynamos, and a dynamo fundamentally puts electricity back into the system. So an electric vehicle using a dynamo on the wheels, so not only driving but using the dynamo as well to trickle charge the batteries as they're being used, would potentially triple, quadruple, who knows, the mileage of an electric vehicle. But that's actually against the law. Perpetual motion is illegal. So we are not allowed by law to have vehicles that are free to run. But just remember, the government loves you. They have your best interests at heart. So with that, I'm going to leave it there. But I think it's very clear how you can see how I feel about the electric debacle and how electric vehicles really were far more advanced and much better than they are today, and some of the reasons why we're now in this position. So with that, thank you very much. Please like, share and subscribe, and share around on various channels that you're on, because I really do appreciate it. It helps me grow and get my videos out to a wider audience. So I really do appreciate everything you guys do for me. So love, light and blessings, everybody. Bye.